At her mother's funeral, Claire Bennett thought the hardest sound she would ever hear was the first shovel of dirt striking the polished mahogany coffin. She was wrong. The hardest sound was a stranger's voice behind her, low and trembling, whispering 5 words that split her grief in two. She was my mother too. Claire turned so quickly that the black umbrella slipped from her hand. Rain struck her face, cold and sharp, but she barely felt it. A woman stood a few feet away at the edge of the cemetery path. She looked to be in her late 30s, perhaps 40, with dark hair plastered to her cheeks and a soaked gray coat clutched closed at the throat. She had not been seated with the family. Claire had not seen her at the church, yet she stood there staring at the coffin with the raw, unguarded pain of someone who had lost more than an acquaintance. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Then Claire's older brother, Daniel, stepped between them. "Who are you?" he demanded. The stranger's eyes moved from Daniel to Claire. Her face seemed to change when she looked at Claire. Something softened, something broke. "My name is Mara," she said, "Mara Ellis." Daniel's jaw tightened. "You need to leave. I'm not here to cause trouble. You just walked up to my sister at our mother's grave and claimed she was your mother. What exactly do you call that?" Mara flinched, but she did not look away. The truth. Claire's Aunt Evelyn hurried toward them, her heels sinking into the wet grass. "Daniel, not here," she hissed. "People are watching." They were. The minister had stopped speaking to a cluster of elderly women. Neighbors and family friends hovered beneath umbrellas, pretending not to stare. Claire saw questions moving across their faces. Who was the stranger? Why did she look as if she belonged? And why, when the rain ran down her pale face, did she look so much like Rose Bennett? Not exactly, not enough to notice at first glance, but once Claire saw it, she could not unsee it. The same narrow chin, the same arch in the eyebrows, the same slight downward turn at the corners of the mouth, as though sadness had been drawn there before birth. Claire's heartbeat stumbled. Daniel reached for Mara's elbow. "You're leaving." "Don't touch me," Mara said, not loudly but with sudden steel. Claire heard her own voice before she knew she had decided to speak. "Let her go." Daniel looked back. "Claire. I said let her go." His hand dropped. Mara swallowed. Rain dripped from her lashes. "I didn't know she had died until yesterday. I saw the obituary online. I drove all night." "From where?" Claire asked. "Milwaukee." Claire stared at her. Their mother had grown up outside Milwaukee. That alone meant nothing, but the knowledge sent a chill through her. Daniel shook his head. "This is insane." Mara pulled a small silver locket from beneath her sweater. "She gave me this when I was 9. She opened it. Inside was a faded photograph of Rose at perhaps 23, much younger than Claire had ever known her. Rose was kneeling beside a dark-haired little girl in a yellow dress. Her arm was wrapped around the child's waist. Both were smiling into the sun. Claire knew that smile. Her mother had smiled that way in only a handful of photographs, before life taught her to be careful. On the other side of the locket, scratched into the silver, were 4 words. "To my brave little bird." Claire's breath caught. When she was a child and thunderstorms shook the windows, Rose had held her close and whispered, "Be brave, little bird." Daniel saw the words. The anger went out of his face for half a second, replaced by something close to fear. Then he snapped the locket shut. "That proves nothing." Mara took it back. "It proves enough." Aunt Evelyn stepped forward. Her face had gone almost colorless. "Where did you get that?" Mara looked at her. "You know who I am, don't you?" Evelyn's lips parted, but no words came. That silence answered more than a confession. Daniel turned on her. "Aunt Ev." Evelyn looked toward the grave. "This is not the place." Mara laughed once bitterly. There was never a place, was there? Claire's knees felt weak. She grabbed the handle of the fallen umbrella and leaned against it as if it were a cane. Her mother had been dead for 3 days. 3 days since Claire had found her sitting in the blue chair by the living room window, hands folded peacefully over a book, as if she had simply fallen asleep in the middle of a sentence. 3 days of phone calls, casseroles, condolence cards, and old photographs. 3 days of believing grief had already shown its worst face. Now a woman stood in the rain and claimed an entire hidden life. Claire looked at Mara. What do you mean she was your mother? Mara's voice cracked. I mean she gave birth to me. Daniel muttered a curse. I was born in 1986, Mara continued. She was 21, she named me Margaret Rose. Claire's eyes closed. Margaret Rose. Rose had once told Claire that if she had another daughter, she would name her Margaret after her grandmother. When I was 6 weeks old, I was adopted by Thomas and Linda Ellis. They were good people. They never lied to me. I always knew I was adopted. When I turned 18, they gave me the letters. What letters? Claire asked. The ones your mother wrote to me every year. Daniel stared. Our mother wrote to you. She wrote birthday letters, Christmas letters, letters when she heard I had won a school award or broken my arm or decided to study nursing. My parents sent her updates through the adoption agency. She kept every photograph they gave her. She knew what I looked like. She knew who I was. Claire felt as though someone had removed the air from the cemetery. How long? She whispered. All my life. Did you meet her? Mara nodded. Daniel stepped back as if struck. When? The first time when I was 24. We met at a diner halfway between Milwaukee and Madison. I was terrified. She was more terrified. She ordered coffee and never drank it. She cried before I even sat down. Claire tried to picture it. Her mother in a diner, waiting for a daughter Claire had never known existed. How many times? Claire asked. Mara looked toward the coffin. Not enough. That is not an answer. Every few months at first, then less often after she got sick. Sometimes she came to me, sometimes I came here. Here, Daniel said, to this town. Mara nodded, usually on weekdays. Claire remembered all the vague errands. The afternoons Rose said she had an appointment, the occasional hotel receipt in a coat pocket, the quietness after unexplained trips. A life hidden in plain sight. Why didn't she tell us? Claire asked. Mara's face crumpled. She said she was going to. When? She said after your father died. Then she said after Daniel's wedding. Then after your divorce was final. There was always something she was afraid of breaking. Daniel gave a hard laugh. So she lied to us for 40 years because she was protecting us? She was afraid you would hate her. Claire looked down at the coffin. The polished lid shone darkly beneath the rain. I don't even know who I'm supposed to hate, she said. The minister approached carefully. Claire, they're ready to continue. Claire nodded without looking at him. Mara took one step back. I'm sorry, I should not have said it like that. How else were you planning to say it? Daniel asked. At the reception, over coffee. I wasn't planning anything, I came to say goodbye. Daniel pointed toward the cemetery gates. You've done that. Daniel, Claire said. No, she does not get to show up, drop a bomb, and stand with the family. Mara's mouth tightened. I am family. You are a stranger. The words hung between them. Mara's face went still. That was the problem, wasn't it? I was family to her and a stranger to everyone else. She turned and walked away through the rain. Claire watched until the gray coat disappeared beyond the line of cars. Only then did the burial continue. But Claire heard none of it. She stood beside Daniel, Aunt Evelyn, and Rose's youngest sister, June. She watched dirt gather over the coffin. She listened to people say her mother had been kind, generous, loyal, devoted to family. Every word sounded true and false at the same time. At the funeral luncheon, everyone spoke too softly. The church hall smelled of coffee, wet wool, and baked ham. Rose's friends filled paper plates and avoided Claire's eyes. Someone had arranged photographs on a long table. Rose as a child beside Lake Michigan, Rose in a wedding dress, Rose holding newborn Daniel, Rose pushing 6-year-old Claire on a swing. No Mara. No Margaret Rose. No evidence that another daughter had existed in the spaces between the pictures. Daniel cornered Aunt Evelyn near the kitchen. You knew, he said. Evelyn glanced around, not here. That is what you said at the cemetery. I knew there had been a baby. I did not know they were still in contact. Claire joined them. Tell us. Evelyn looked 20 years older than she had that morning. Your mother was 19 when she met Peter Lawson. Who was he? Claire asked. A musician, or he called himself one. He played guitar in bars and promised he was going to Nashville. Your grandparents despised him. He was charming, irresponsible, and already married, though Rose did not know that at first. Daniel crossed his arms, and she got pregnant. And yes, what happened to Peter? He left town before the baby was born. Your grandfather made certain of it. How? Evelyn looked down. He threatened him, paid him, I don't know every detail. Claire said, and the adoption. Your parents were strict. The kind of strict that believed reputation was the same thing as morality. They sent Rose to a home for unmarried mothers in another county. Everyone was told she was staying with relatives and finishing a course. Did she want to give the baby away? Evelyn's eyes filled, no. The answer was immediate. She fought them, she begged, she said she would work, she said she would live with me. But I was 22, newly married, and afraid of your grandfather. We all failed her. Daniel looked toward the crowd. Then she married Dad. 4 years later, Robert knew there had been a baby. Claire stared. Dad knew. And yes, their father had been dead 7 years. A quiet, decent man who fixed old radios, made pancakes on Sundays, and had never raised his voice in anger. Claire had worshipped him. How could he hide it from us? She asked. Evelyn's shoulders sagged. Because Rose asked him to, he believed the past belonged to her. No, Daniel said. The past became ours the moment she kept seeing that woman. Her name is Mara, Claire said. Daniel looked at her sharply. Claire did not know why she defended the name. Perhaps because someone had to say it. Perhaps because all day Mara had been spoken of as a disturbance, a threat, a stranger, when she was the one person who had come to the funeral carrying the same grief. Evelyn touched Claire's arm. Your mother loved you. That is not the question. She loved all of you. That is the problem, Daniel said. Apparently there was an all of us no one bothered to mention. Later, when most people had gone, Claire found a cream envelope tucked beneath a vase on the photograph table. Her name was written across the front in Rose's careful handwriting. Claire. Her fingers shook. Inside was a single folded sheet. My darling girl. If you are reading this, then I failed to tell you the truth while I still had the courage to hold your hand through it. I have rehearsed the words for years. Every time I looked at you, I thought today. Every time, fear won. Before Daniel, before you, before your father gave me a life I did not believe I deserved, there was another daughter. Her name was Margaret Rose, though she now calls herself Mara. I loved her first. I lost her first. I found her again, and then I committed a different kind of sin by keeping her in the shadows. You may believe this means my love for you was divided. It was not. Love does not divide. It multiplies, but secrecy poisons what love is meant to protect. Please find Mara. She will pretend she does not need you. She does. And so do you. Forgive me if you can. Mom. Claire read it 3 times. Then she carried the letter to the women's restroom, locked herself in a stall, and cried without making a sound. That evening, Rose's house seemed full of ghosts. Claire and Daniel had grown up in the modest brick home on Willow Street. After their father died, Rose refused to leave, though the stairs hurt her knees and the furnace groaned every winter. Now sympathy flowers crowded the kitchen counters. Half-finished cups of tea sat everywhere. Coats hung over chairs. The house still smelled faintly of Rose's lavender hand cream. Daniel stood in the living room, opening drawers. What are you doing? Claire asked. Looking. For what? Proof, letters, photographs, anything else she decided we didn't deserve to know. Stop. He turned. You're not angry. Of course I'm angry. You don't sound angry. I don't know what I sound like. Daniel pulled open the desk drawer. I spent the entire day wondering how many times she looked me in the face and lied. She may have thought she was protecting us. Don't start. I didn't say she was right. You heard Aunt Evelyn, Dad knew, everyone knew except us. June didn't. June was 15, That hardly makes me feel better. Claire sat in the blue chair where she had found their mother. The cushion still held a shallow dip. On the table lay the book Rose had been reading, a mystery novel with a grocery receipt marking page 187. How did Mara know Mom was sick? Claire asked. Daniel stopped searching. She said they met less often after Mom got sick. And so, Mom never told us she was sick. Their mother's heart condition had been discovered only after her death. The doctor said it had probably caused dizziness and shortness of breath for months. Daniel looked disturbed, but he masked it quickly. Maybe Mara was guessing. Or Mom told her. That would make it worse. Claire thought of Rose confessing weakness to the daughter she saw in secret while insisting to Claire that she was fine. On the mantel stood a framed photograph from the previous Christmas. Rose in the center, Daniel beside his wife and teenage son, Claire on the other side, smiling too brightly because it was her first Christmas after the divorce. A complete family. That was what Claire had believed. She unfolded the letter. Mom asked me to find her. Daniel read it, his face hardened with each line. No. Know what? You are not doing this. Claire almost laughed. You don't get to decide. She ambushed us at the funeral. She drove all night because her mother died. Our mother. Claire met his eyes. That is exactly the point. Daniel crushed the letter in his fist, then caught himself and smoothed it against the desk. You always do this. Do what? Try to understand everyone until you excuse what they did. I am not excusing anyone. You excused Mark. Her ex-husband's name landed like a slap. That has nothing to do with this. It has everything to do with this. Mark lied for a year, and you spent 6 months asking what pain made him cheat. Now Mom lies for decades, and you're already turning it into a tragedy where no one is responsible. Claire stood, and you turn every hurt into a trial where anger makes you the judge. At least anger is honest. So is grief. Daniel looked away. For a moment, they were children again, standing on opposite sides of the hallway while their mother told them to stop fighting. But Rose was not there. Claire took the letter from the desk and folded it carefully. I'm going to find Mara. Then do it without me. He walked out, slamming the front door hard enough to rattle the photographs. Claire spent the night in her childhood bedroom. The wallpaper had been painted over, but glow-in-the-dark stars still clung to the ceiling. She lay awake listening to rain tap the window, replaying every conversation she had ever had with her mother. There had been clues. Rose's refusal to watch movies about adoption. The way she cried when Claire gave birth to her daughter, Sophie, then whispered, "Never let anyone tell you what kind of mother you are allowed to be." A shoebox Claire once found in the attic labeled 1986. Rose had snatched it from her hands and said it contained old tax receipts. Claire rose before dawn and climbed the narrow attic stairs. The air smelled of dust and cedar. Boxes lined the walls, labeled in Rose's handwriting. Christmas, Roberts TOOLS, Children's School Papers, Keep. She found the 1986 box beneath a stack of blankets. Inside were no tax receipts. There was a hospital bracelet with the name Baby Girl Bennett. A tiny knitted cap. A folded birth announcement that had never been mailed. Margaret Rose Bennett, born March 4, 1986, 6 pounds 9 ounces. And letters. Hundreds of them tied with faded ribbons. Some were in Rose's handwriting. Others were written by a woman named Linda Ellis. Claire opened the oldest. Dear Rose, Maggie is 3 months old today. She has begun smiling, especially after her morning bottle. Tom says she smiles at the ceiling fan, but I choose to believe she smiles at me. We want you to know she is healthy, cherished, and safe. We have enclosed a photograph as promised. Claire unfolded the photograph. Baby Mara lay beneath a yellow blanket, one fist raised beside her face. The next letter described her first tooth. The next, her first steps. Then preschool, chicken pox, a Christmas pageant, a fear of deep water, a love of strawberry ice cream. Rose had written replies but had not always sent them. Some were addressed to the adoption agency. Others began, "My sweet Margaret," and ended, "Your first mother, Rose." Claire read until the attic brightened with morning. In one letter, Rose wrote, "Today I gave birth to your brother, Daniel. He has your dark hair. I held him and felt joy so great it frightened me, then guilt so sharp I could not breathe. The nurse thought I was exhausted. I was grieving you and loving him, and I did not know the heart could do both without breaking." Another letter, written after Claire's birth. "You have a sister now. Her name is Claire. She is loud, impatient, and determined to be held at all times. I wonder if you would have liked her. I wonder if one day she will know about you. I promise myself she will. I am afraid promises made in secret become lies." Claire pressed the paper to her chest. The letters proved something Daniel had not been ready to see. Rose had not forgotten Mara. But they also proved something Claire was not ready to forgive. Rose had imagined bringing her daughters together from the day Claire was born, then spent 40 years choosing not to. At the bottom of the box was a photograph of Mara as an adult, standing outside a hospital in blue scrubs. On the back, Rose had written, "My brave little bird became a nurse." Beneath it was a recent envelope with Mara's return address. Claire copied it into her phone. At 9 in the morning, she drove north. The rain had stopped, leaving the roads silver beneath a pale sky. Mara lived 3 hours away in a small lakeside town, not in Milwaukee as Claire had assumed. Claire replayed what Mara had said at the cemetery. She had driven from Milwaukee because perhaps that was where she worked, or perhaps she had lied about where she lived. The uncertainty fed Claire's suspicion. By noon, she pulled into the driveway of a narrow white house with dark shutters. Wind chimes moved above the porch. A bicycle leaned against the garage. In the front window, paper snowflakes were taped to the glass, though Christmas was months away. Claire almost left. Then the door opened. Mara stood there wearing jeans and an old green sweater. Without rain, without funeral clothes, she looked younger, more ordinary. Her eyes were swollen. "You found me," she said. "My mother asked me to." Mara's expression changed. "She left you a letter." "And yes." Claire held up the envelope from the attic, "and she kept yours." Mara stepped aside. "Come in." The house smelled of cinnamon and laundry soap. Family photographs covered the walls. Mara with an older couple Claire assumed were her adoptive parents. Mara at a college graduation. Mara in a wedding dress beside a broad-shouldered man with kind eyes. Mara holding a baby. Mara with 2 boys at a lake. A life Claire had never imagined. A little boy, perhaps 9, came around the corner carrying a model airplane. He stopped when he saw Claire. "Mom." Mara's face tightened. "Eli, this is Claire." The boy looked at Claire with immediate curiosity. "Your sister." Mara went still. Claire answered before she could, "Yes." The word felt strange and irreversible. Eli smiled. "You look alike." "We do not," Mara said quickly. "You have the same sad mouth." "Eli." "What?" Grandma Linda said at first. A man entered from the kitchen, drying his hands. He looked from Mara to Claire and understood. "I'm Luke," he said gently, "Mara's husband." "Claire." "I know." Mara looked embarrassed. "I told him about yesterday." Luke touched her shoulder. "I'm taking Eli to his game." "I can stay," he offered. "No, go, he has been practicing for weeks." Eli slipped on his shoes, then hesitated at the door. "Was Grandma Rose your mom too?" Claire's throat closed. "And yes." "Did you know about us?" "No." He considered this with the seriousness of a child deciding whether adults had failed a test. "That's sad." "Yes," Claire said, "it is." After Luke and Eli left, Mara poured coffee. Claire did not touch it. "Why did you say Milwaukee?" she asked. "I worked there 3 days a week at a cardiac clinic. I was on shift when I saw the obituary." "How did you see it?" "I checked the local paper every morning." "Why?" Mara lowered her eyes, because she stopped answering. Claire stared at her. "When?" "5 weeks ago." And you did not call anyone. Who would I call? I wasn't supposed to exist. You knew my name. I knew enough to know you did not know about me. You could have contacted me. And said what? Hello, I'm the secret daughter your mother has been hiding for 4 decades. That is what you said at the cemetery. I was not planning to. Mara pressed her palms against the mug. I stood there listening to everyone call her a devoted mother. I watched you and Daniel beside the grave, and suddenly I was 9 years old again, reading her letters and wondering why I was allowed to know she existed, but no one was allowed to know I did. Claire heard the accusation beneath the words. We did not do that to you. I know. Do you? Mara looked up. I know you were children, I know you were lied to, but grief is not reasonable. No, it isn't. For a while, the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator. Claire took the photograph of Rose and young Mara from her bag and set it on the table. When was this taken? The summer I turned 9. You said she gave you the locket then. Mara nodded. But you also said you didn't meet her until you were 24. Mara froze. Claire felt a hard, cold satisfaction. She had found the inconsistency. You lied. Mara stared at the photograph. I met her when I was 9. I did not remember until I was older. That makes no sense. My parents brought me to a park. They told me she was a friend from long ago. I thought she was a cousin or maybe one of Mom's college friends. She gave me the locket. We spent 2 hours together. Then she disappeared again. Why would your parents do that? Because I had started asking questions about my birth mother. I had found the letters. My mother thought meeting Rose once would settle something in me. Instead, I became obsessed. I asked when I could see her again. Rose panicked. So everyone decided to lie to you too. And yes. Why didn't you tell us at the cemetery? Because saying I met her once as a child sounded like I was trying to make myself more important. Claire laughed without humor. You are very important, that is the problem. Mara's eyes filled. I did not ask to be. Neither had Claire. That realization softened something in her, though not enough. When did you meet her again? When I was 24. After my adoptive father died, my mother gave me Rose's contact information. She said I had the right to choose. And then, we met, we fought, we cried. I told her she had no right to say she loved me. She told me she had thought of me every day. I said thinking was not the same as being there. Claire whispered, what did she say? She said she knew. The answer sounded exactly like Rose. Mara continued. After that, we tried. She came to my wedding but sat in the back and left before the reception. She held my oldest son when he was 3 days old. She came when my mother died. She stayed with me that whole night. Claire looked around at the photographs. Which one is your mother? Mara pointed to a picture of a silver-haired woman laughing beside a birthday cake. Claire studied her. You called Rose your mother at the funeral. And she was. And Linda. And she was too. The simplicity of the answer hurt. Claire had spent the drive believing motherhood must be a single chair occupied by one woman at a time. Mara had lived her entire life knowing love could be layered, imperfect, and shared. Did you resend us? Claire asked. And yes. The honesty surprised her. Mara gave a small, ashamed smile. Not always, not rationally. But when Rose canceled lunch because Daniel needed help moving, I resented him. When she missed Eli's school play because you were going through your divorce, I resented you. Then I hated myself because you did not know. Claire thought of those moments from the other side. Daniel moving into a new house after his marriage. Claire sitting on Rose's kitchen floor after discovering Mark's affair, her mother canceling an unspecified appointment and making soup. Mara had been waiting somewhere. Every act of love cast a shadow when built on secrecy. Did she tell you about us? Everything. She was proud of Daniel's business. She worried he worked too much. She said you were stronger than you believed. She kept every article you wrote. Claire worked as a features reporter for a regional magazine. Her mother had saved copies, of course. But the thought of Rose carrying those articles to Mara, made Claire feel exposed. What else? Mara hesitated. She said you were lonely. Claire's anger returned. She had no right. She was your mother. So that gave her the right to tell a stranger about my marriage. Mara's face closed. I was not a stranger to her. You were to me. And whose fault was that? The question cracked through the room. Claire stood so quickly the chair scraped the floor. Mara stood too. I'm sorry. No, you're not. I am sorry you are hurt. I'm not sorry I existed in her life. Claire grabbed her coat. Claire, wait. She turned at the door. Did she know she was sick? Mara's expression answered before her words did. Yes. How long? 7 months. Claire felt the floor tilt. She saw a cardiologist at my clinic. She had severe aortic stenosis. They recommended surgery. Why didn't she tell us? She was afraid you would pressure her. She needed surgery. She refused. And you let her. I am a nurse, not her jailer. You knew she might die. So did she. Claire stepped closer. Did she tell you not to tell us? Yes. And you agreed. Mara's eyes flashed. Do not make me the keeper of her choices just because she is no longer here to answer for them. You could have saved her. I tried. Not hard enough. The cruelty of the words was clear the moment Claire spoke them. Mara's face emptied. My mother died of cancer when I was 32, she said quietly. I spent her last 6 months begging doctors to give us more time. Do you think I did not beg Rose? Do you think I did not lie awake hearing every possible way her heart could fail? She told me if I betrayed her confidence, she would disappear from my life again. I had already lost her once. Claire wanted to apologize, but anger held her upright. You chose your relationship with her over her life. No, Mara said she did. Claire left. She drove without seeing the road clearly, tears blurring the houses and fields. At a gas station 20 miles away, she pulled over and vomited beside the car. Her mother had known. Rose had sat in Claire's kitchen 2 weeks earlier, drinking tea and asking about Sophie's college applications, while a damaged valve narrowed inside her heart. She had hugged Claire goodbye. She had said, "Do not worry so much, little bird." Claire had believed there would be another visit. Another birthday. Another Christmas. Grief now felt less like absence and more like betrayal. When she returned to Willow Street after dark, Daniel's car was in the driveway. He sat at the kitchen table with a bottle of whiskey and the open 1986 box. You found it, Claire said. I found everything. She took off her coat. Mara knew Mom was sick. Daniel looked up slowly. Claire told him. His face changed from disbelief to fury. He swept the bottle from the table. It shattered against the cabinet, filling the kitchen with the smell of whiskey. She knew and did nothing. Mom refused surgery. She should have called us. I said the same thing. Give me her address. No. Claire. You're drunk. I am not drunk. You threw a bottle. Give me the address. So you can drive there and do what? Ask why our mother is dead. Our mother is dead because she made a choice. And Mara helped her hide it. Claire wanted to agree, part of her did, but she remembered Mara saying, I had already lost her once. She was afraid Mom would cut her off. Daniel laughed bitterly. Then maybe Mom learned manipulation from Grandpa. Stop. What? We are supposed to protect her memory now. I don't know what we are supposed to do. That is always your answer. No, my answer is that more than one thing can be true. Mom loved us. Mom lied to us. Mom loved Mara. Mom abandoned her. Mara should have called. Mara was terrified. I am angry at all of them and I still miss Mom so much I cannot breathe. Her voice broke. Daniel's anger collapsed. He sat down heavily. For a long time, he stared at the shards of glass. Then he said, when I was 12, I broke Dad's radio. Claire remembered. It had been an antique Philco radio Robert had spent months restoring. I blamed you, Daniel continued. Mom knew I did it. She made me tell Dad. He was furious, but later she said, a family can survive a broken thing. It cannot survive a hidden thing. Claire sat across from him. Daniel's eyes filled. She knew exactly what secrets do. And yes, why did she think we were so fragile? Maybe she thought she was. Daniel looked at the letters. I don't want a sister. Claire said nothing. I have one sister. You still do. You know what I mean. And yes. He rubbed both hands over his face. What does Sophie think? Claire had not told her 20-year-old daughter yet. Sophie was away at college and had returned to campus that morning after the funeral. I don't know. You need to tell her before she sees something online. Who would put it online? Mara has children, people talk. Claire nodded. Daniel stood. I am going home. Are you safe to drive? I barely drank. At the door he paused. Did she look like Mom? Claire thought of Mara's sad mouth, Rose's eyes, the same instinct to hold pain privately until it became a weapon. Yes, she said. Daniel left without another word. Claire cleaned the broken glass, then called Sophie. Her daughter answered on the third ring. Mom, is everything okay? No. Claire sat in Rose's blue chair and told her the truth. Sophie listened silently. When Claire finished, there was a long pause. So I have an aunt, Sophie said. And yes. And cousins. And yes. Did Grandma love them? And yes. Did she love us? Claire closed her eyes. Yes. Then, why are you crying like one cancels the other? The question was so gentle that Claire almost broke. Because she lied. She was probably scared. That does not make it right. No, but it makes it sad. Claire smiled through tears. Sophie had always possessed a wisdom that made her feel both proud and defenseless. I met Mara today, Claire said. What is she like? I don't know. Do you want to? I don't know that either. Sophie was quiet. Grandma once told me people are not the worst thing they have done. Claire remembered the phrase. Rose had said it during the worst of the divorce when Claire called Mark a monster. She had many useful beliefs, Claire said. She did not always live by them. Maybe that is why she kept repeating them. After the call, Claire opened the attic box again. This time, she read the letters in order. Not every letter was tender, some were furious. At 16, Mara had written a page she never mailed, the handwriting jagged. I hope you have other children. I hope they look like me. I hope every time you kiss them goodnight, you remember the child you gave away. At 24, after meeting Rose, she wrote, You cried more than I did. I thought that would make me feel powerful. It made me feel cruel. I wanted you to say there was a reason good enough. There wasn't. I wanted you to say you had forgotten me. You hadn't. Somehow that was worse. Rose's reply was 6 pages. I will never ask you to forgive the girl I was or the woman I became. I let my parents take you, then I let shame take the truth. I built a life around the empty room where you should have been. That was not noble. It was cowardice decorated as sacrifice. Claire read until dawn. By morning, anger had not disappeared. But it had changed shape. She understood now that Rose's secret had not been a locked room she visited without consequence. It had been the foundation beneath every room in the house. And foundations, once exposed, made everything above them feel unstable. 3 days later, Claire returned to work. She lasted 47 minutes. Her editor asked for a revised opening to an article about a family-owned bakery. Claire stared at the phrase 3 generations under one roof until the letters blurred. In the restroom, she locked herself in a stall and listened to 2 coworkers discuss weekend plans as if the world had not split open. She went home before lunch. A car she did not recognize was parked outside Rose's house. Mara sat on the front steps with a cardboard box beside her. Claire stopped at the gate. How did you know I was here? Your aunt told me. Aunt Evelyn gave you the address. I already knew the address. Of course she did. Mara stood. I came to return some things. What things? Your mother kept a few clothes at my house. A toothbrush, books, nothing important. Nothing important. The box held a blue cardigan Claire had seen Rose wear dozens of times, a pair of reading glasses, 2 mystery novels, a ceramic mug that read World's Okayest Grandma, and a framed photograph of Rose holding Mara's youngest son. Claire touched the cardigan. She told me she lost this. Mara looked ashamed. She left it after Thanksgiving. Last Thanksgiving. And yes, Claire remembered Rose arriving late to dinner, cheeks pink from the cold, saying traffic had been terrible. She had eaten little and smiled often. Did she spend Thanksgiving with you? Breakfast. Before coming to us. And yes. Claire carried the box inside. Mara followed. The house had begun to lose Rose's presence. Flowers wilted in their vases. Food from neighbors crowded the refrigerator. Claire had washed the last cup her mother used, then cried because the lipstick mark vanished. She placed the box on the kitchen table. Why did you really come? Mara took an envelope from her coat. The clinic called. There are medical forms. Since I was listed as her emergency contact, they sent them to me. Claire stared. You were her emergency contact. She put my number down because she didn't want you to know. The sentence was unbearable. Claire took the envelope. Daniel should see this. I thought he wanted nothing to do with me. He wants someone to blame. Do you? And yes. Mara nodded as though she had expected nothing else. Claire opened the envelope. Inside was a copy of Rose's advance directive. She had refused valve replacement surgery after being informed of the risks. She had also refused resuscitation if her heart stopped. At the bottom was Rose's signature. Beside it was Mara's. You witnessed this. And yes, you signed it. I witnessed her signature. I did not approve her decision. You made it possible. If I had refused, the clinic would have found another witness. But you stayed. She asked me to. Claire's hands shook. She asked you for things she should have asked of us. I know. You keep saying that as if knowledge is an apology. It isn't. Then what is it? Mara's composure broke. It is all I have. I know she lied. I know I helped her. I know you think I stole months you should have had. I know every time she sat in my kitchen, she was not sitting in yours. I know when she died, I was not there either. I know I have no clean place to stand. Claire looked at her. Mara's eyes were red, but she continued. She called me the night before she died. She said she had been dizzy. I told her to call an ambulance. She refused. I threatened to call you. She begged me not to. Claire could barely breathe. You spoke to her the night before. And yes. What did she say? That she was tired. What else? Mara pressed a fist to her mouth. She said she had written the letters, one for you, one for Daniel, one for me. She said she had wasted too much time. You knew she might die that night. I called her doctor. He said he could not force her to go to the hospital. I drove here. Claire's head snapped up. I arrived after midnight, Mara said. I sat in my car across the street for almost an hour. The living room light was on. I called her again. She said if I came inside, she would refuse to speak to me. She said she wanted one last night in her own home without being watched. You left. I drove to a motel. I came back at 6 in the morning. Your car was already here. The ambulance came before I could get out. Claire remembered the gray sedan parked down the block while paramedics carried Rose's body away. At the time, she had assumed it belonged to a neighbor. You watched me find her. I watched you lose her. The difference was small and enormous. Claire leaned against the sink. Mara whispered, I am sorry. You should have knocked down the door. I know. You should have called me. I know. You should have made her hate you. Mara's face twisted, I know. Claire's anger rose, bright and vicious, but beneath it was recognition. How many times had Claire kept peace with someone she loved, because conflict felt like abandonment? How many times had she accepted Mark's excuses, because losing him seemed worse than losing herself? She had called it patience. Mara had called it fear. Neither name changed the consequence. "Where is your letter?" Claire asked. Mara looked confused. "You said Mom wrote one for you." "I haven't found it." "Maybe it is here." They searched the desk, the bedroom, the attic, the kitchen drawers. Rose had left Claire's letter at the church. Daniel's had been discovered in the 1986 box, sealed beneath a stack of photographs. But there was nothing for Mara. By late afternoon, the house looked as though it had been robbed. Mara sat on the bedroom floor beside an open suitcase. "She changed her mind," she said. "It's about writing. About giving it to me." "You don't know that." "She always changed her mind when it came to me." Claire almost denied it, then stopped. On the top shelf of Rose's closet sat an old leather handbag. Claire pulled it down. Inside were expired coupons, tissues, a rosary, and a motel keycard. No letter. Mara picked up the rosary. She used to hold this when she talked about the adoption. She wasn't very religious. She was when she felt guilty. Claire sat beside her. For several minutes, they searched in silence through a jewelry box. Beneath a tray of earrings, Claire found a tiny brass key. "I know this key," she said. In the attic, behind boxes of winter clothes, stood a cedar chest that had belonged to Rose's mother. Claire had tried to open it after the funeral, but it was locked. The brass key turned. Inside were baby clothes, photographs, and a folded yellow blanket. Mara touched the fabric and gasped. "My mother said I came home from the hospital wrapped in this." At the bottom of the chest were 3 sealed envelopes. "Daniel. Claire. Margaret." Mara took hers with both hands. She did not open it. "Do you want privacy?" Claire asked. "No." Mara sat on the attic floor. Claire remained across from her. The letter trembled as Mara unfolded it. "My first daughter." There is no way to write those words without feeling the distance between what should have been and what was. "I have called you my first daughter in my heart for 40 years, but too often I treated you like a secret guest in my life. I asked you to accept crumbs because I was afraid the whole table would collapse if I gave you a seat. You deserved a mother who fought harder when you were born. You deserved a woman brave enough to tell her family the truth when she found you again. You deserved to walk through my front door in daylight. I cannot repair your childhood. I cannot return the birthdays, the scraped knees, the ordinary Tuesdays. I cannot make Linda less your mother, nor would I ever want to. She gave you what I could not, but I need you to know that gratitude for her never erased my grief for you. I also need you to forgive yourself for my choices. You did not make me refuse surgery. You did not make me hide. You did not owe me secrecy simply because I had already wounded you. I used your fear of losing me to keep control of the truth. A mother should not ask her child to carry that burden. Find Claire if she lets you. Be patient with Daniel. He has always built walls before anyone can leave him. Do not accept a hidden place again from anyone. You are not my shame. You are my daughter." "Mom." Mara read the final line twice. Then she made a sound unlike crying, a low broken gasp that seemed pulled from somewhere beneath speech. Claire moved without thinking and wrapped her arms around her. Mara resisted for a second. Then she collapsed against Claire's shoulder. They sat on the dusty attic floor, holding each other beneath the sloped roof, surrounded by the evidence of a life Rose had hidden and preserved with equal devotion. Claire did not forgive her mother in that moment. She did not forgive Mara. But for the first time, she understood that forgiveness was not the first thing required. The first thing was truth. A week after the funeral, Daniel agreed to meet Mara. Only because Claire threatened to bring her to his office. They gathered at Rose's house on Sunday afternoon. Daniel arrived with his wife, Rachel, but left his son at home. Mara came alone. The tension at the kitchen table was so thick that no one touched the food Claire had prepared. Daniel placed Rose's letter in front of him. "I read this," he said. Mara nodded. "She wrote that you never asked her to choose between us." "I didn't. She says you defended me when she complained that I did not visit enough. I told her you had a business and a family. She told you about me. Some things." Daniel looked at Claire. "What things?" Mara answered, "That you built your company from nothing, that you paid off your employees' medical bills when the plant closed for 2 months, that you call your son every day when he is away, that you are stubborn." Rachel almost smiled. Daniel did not. "What did she say I was afraid of?" Mara hesitated, being left. His face hardened. "She wrote the same thing in my letter." Claire had not asked to read Daniel's letter. He had shared only one paragraph, where Rose apologized for teaching him that love depended on silence. Daniel looked directly at Mara. "You could have called me." "And yes." "You could have told me she was dying." "And yes." "You signed the form." "And yes." "Do you understand that when I look at you, I see the person who helped my mother die without giving me a chance to say goodbye?" Rachel reached for his hand, but he pulled away. Mara's face was pale. "Yes." "Then why are you here?" "Because Claire asked me." "That is not enough." Mara took a breath. "Because I spent my life wanting to sit at this table. Because Rose asked me to find you. Because my sons deserve the truth. Because I am tired of being ashamed for surviving a decision I did not make." Daniel's eyes flashed. "You think this is about your shame?" "No, I think this is about all of ours." "I am not ashamed." "Then why is your son not here?" A silence. Daniel pushed his chair back. "Do not talk about my son." "I am not criticizing you. I am asking why you hid me from him today." "Because I don't know you." "He does not need to know me to know I exist." Daniel stood. Claire stood too. "Sit down." "No." "You wanted honesty. This is what honesty sounds like when you are not controlling it." "I said sit down, Daniel." He stared at her. Rachel spoke softly. "Please." Daniel sat. Mara folded her hands. "Rose hurt you. I helped her keep the secret. I will apologize for that as many times as you need, but I will not apologize for being her daughter." Daniel's mouth tightened. "No one is asking you to," Claire said. "He is." Daniel looked away. Claire placed the yellow baby blanket on the table. "We can spend the rest of our lives deciding who suffered most," she said. "Mara lost a mother before she could remember her. We lost the mother we thought we knew. Mom lost Mara, then chose secrecy every day after. Dad helped her hide it. Aunt Evelyn stayed silent. Grandpa forced the adoption. There is enough blame for everyone." "That does not mean we have to become a family," Daniel said. "No," Mara answered, "it doesn't." The calmness of her agreement startled him. "I am not here to take anything," she continued. "Not money, not the house, not your place. I wanted to hear stories about her that I did not know. I wanted you to know the stories I had, that is all." Daniel laughed without warmth. "People always say they want nothing before the lawyer calls." Rachel said, "Daniel." Mara reached into her bag and placed a document on the table. It was a signed disclaimer from an attorney stating she would not contest Rose's will or seek any claim against the estate. "I had this prepared before the funeral," she said. "Rose told me what she left you. She left me the locket and a savings bond from 1986. I do not want anything else." Daniel read the document. His anger lost momentum, though suspicion remained. "Why didn't she put you in the obituary?" he asked. "She didn't write her obituary." "I did." Mara nodded. "I know." The admission cut him. Daniel's face twisted. "I wrote that she was survived by 2 children." "You wrote what you knew." "I stood at her grave and spoke as if you had never existed." "And yes." For the first time, Mara's voice held no accusation, only sadness. Daniel covered his eyes with one hand. Rachel moved closer, touching his back. Mara said, "She once told me you used to leave the hallway light on because Claire was afraid of the dark." Daniel lowered his hand. Claire had forgotten. "When Dad told me to turn it off," Daniel said slowly, "I put a towel under my door so the light would spill into her room." Mara smiled through tears. She remembered. Daniel stared at the table. It was not forgiveness. But it was the first story. After that, the afternoon changed. Not dramatically. No one embraced. No music swelled. Daniel remained guarded, and Mara answered questions like someone walking through a room full of broken glass. But they spoke. Mara told them Rose hated the cinnamon rolls at the diner, where they first met, but ordered one every time because Mara liked them. Claire told Mara that Rose sang off-key while cleaning and invented new lyrics when she forgot the real ones. Daniel described the summer Rose drove 4 hours to retrieve him from a failed camping trip without saying, "I told you so," until they were safely home. Each story revealed a version of Rose the others recognized. Each story also revealed time they had not shared. By sunset, Daniel asked to see the photograph of Rose holding Mara's son. "He has her nose," he said. Mara smiled. "Eli says he has her temper." "She did not have a temper," Daniel replied automatically. Claire and Mara looked at him. Daniel sighed. "Fine, she had a temper." They laughed. It lasted only a moment, but the sound startled all of them. When Mara left, Daniel did not call her sister. He did say, "Drive safely." For Daniel, it was almost an embrace. In the weeks that followed, Claire began sorting Rose's belongings. She expected the task to become easier. It did not. Every object contained two histories now, the one Claire remembered and the one she questioned. A red scarf might have been worn to Claire's birthday or to meet Mara at the diner. A grocery list might have been ordinary or an excuse. A photograph might show the whole family or only the visible part of it. Claire's work as a writer had taught her that facts created clarity. Grief taught her that facts could multiply uncertainty. She returned to Mara's house twice. The first time, Sophie came with her. Mara opened the door and stared at her niece. Sophie smiled nervously. "I think you are my aunt." Mara covered her mouth. Eli shouted from the hallway, "I told you she would come." The visit was awkward, loud, and unexpectedly warm. Mara's older son, Noah, was 16 and suspicious of everyone. Her younger son, Eli, asked Claire 20 questions in 10 minutes. Luke cooked too much food. Sophie discovered that she and Noah both loved old horror movies and spent an hour arguing about which one was best. Claire watched Mara move through the kitchen, touching shoulders, refilling glasses, reminding Eli not to feed the dog from the table. She was a mother. Not a secret daughter, not a witness on a medical form, not the woman at the cemetery. A mother. Claire wondered how Rose had survived watching Mara become the parent she had never been allowed to be. Later, while the children walked to the lake, Mara brought out a box of photographs. "This was the first Christmas she came," Mara said. Rose stood beside a tree, wearing the red scarf Claire had packed away that morning. "What year?" 7 years ago. The year their father died. Claire remembered Rose saying she could not bear Christmas at home and would spend 2 days with a friend from church. She came here after Dad's funeral. Mara's expression changed. She cried all night. She said Robert was the only person who knew her whole life. "He knew you met." "Yes, he encouraged it." Claire looked at a photograph of Rose sitting beside Mara on the couch, both holding mugs. "Did Dad ever meet you?" "Once." Claire's breath caught. "Where?" "At the diner. He came with Rose. He apologized to me." "For what?" "For helping her keep me secret." Mara searched the box and found a folded note. Robert's handwriting was unmistakable. "Mara." There is no useful defense for silence. I told myself I was respecting Rose's pain. In truth, I was protecting the life we built because I feared what honesty might cost. You paid that cost instead. I cannot ask you to forgive us. I can only tell you that Rose has loved you every day I have known her, and that I am sorry love was not enough to make us brave. Robert Bennett. Claire read it twice. May I keep this? Mara hesitated. It belongs to both of us. They made a copy. On the drive home, Sophie asked, Are you going to write about this? Claire had considered it. She knew how to build an article from hidden history. She could research the maternity home, the adoption laws, the culture of shame that had trapped Rose. She could interview other women. She could transform private grief into something useful. But Mara had spent her life being treated as a story someone else controlled. I will ask her, Claire said. What would Grandma want? Claire looked at the road. For once, I think that is not the most important question. Mara agreed to the article with conditions. No real names. No photographs of her children. No version where Rose became either a saint or a villain. She was both better and worse than the worst thing she did, Mara said. Claire wrote that sentence down. The article became the hardest piece she had ever written. She titled it The Children Kept in the Shadows. She researched the homes where unmarried pregnant women had been sent, the pressure used to obtain consent, the sealed records, and the generations of families shaped by silence. She interviewed women in their 70s and 80s who still remembered the sound of hospital doors closing after nurses carried away their babies. One woman said, Everyone told me forgetting was part of being good. I became very good and never forgot. Claire cried after that interview. She wrote about a fictionalized mother named Ruth, a daughter named Anna, and 2 later children who discovered the truth at a funeral. She wrote about fear passed down like an inheritance. She wrote that secrets often began as attempts to survive, then continued as ways to avoid accountability. Before publication, she sent the draft to Mara and Daniel. Mara returned it with only 3 comments. Daniel called. You made Mom sound weak, he said. She was weak in some ways. She was strong in others. That is in the article. Not enough. Claire closed her eyes. What do you want me to add? He was quiet. Then he told her a story. When Daniel was 10, he had fallen through thin ice on a pond behind their school. Rose ran across the ice before firefighters arrived. She crawled on her stomach, reached into the freezing water, and pulled him out by the hood of his coat. She did not hesitate, Daniel said, not once. Claire added the story. The article was published on a Sunday morning. By noon, her inbox was full. Women wrote about babies they had surrendered. Adopted adults wrote about searching for names. Later-born children wrote about discovering siblings after their parents died. Some messages were angry. Some accused Claire of disrespecting the dead. Others thanked her for giving language to a grief they had carried alone. Daniel did not speak to her for 4 days. Then he sent a photograph. His son, Ben, sat at a restaurant table beside Mara's son, Noah. They were both holding enormous hamburgers. The message read, Met the nephews, they cheat at cards. Claire laughed so hard she cried. Months passed. The first Thanksgiving without Rose approached. Claire dreaded it. Holidays had always revolved around her mother's house. Rose's dry turkey, Daniel correcting everyone's carving technique, Sophie stealing crispy skin before dinner, arguments over whether canned cranberry sauce counted as food. This year, no one knew where to gather. Mara offered her house. Daniel refused. Claire offered Rose's house. Mara hesitated. Sophie solved it by creating a family group chat and announcing that dinner would be at Rose's house at 2. Anyone who complained would be assigned dishwashing duty. On Thanksgiving morning, Claire woke before sunrise. She stood in Rose's kitchen, surrounded by recipe cards. The house felt less haunted now, but not empty. Mara's photographs had been added to the mantle. The family picture from last Christmas remained in the center, no longer pretending to be complete. At 10, Daniel arrived with Rachel and Ben. At 11, Mara arrived with Luke, Noah, and Eli. For a few seconds, everyone crowded the entryway, holding coats and casserole dishes, unsure how to greet one another. Then Eli announced, "I brought Grandma Rose's terrible cinnamon rolls." Mara looked offended. "They are not terrible." "They can be both," Daniel said. The tension broke. Dinner was messy. The turkey cooked unevenly. Noah and Ben argued about football. Sophie burned the rolls. Luke opened the wrong bottle of wine. Daniel criticized Mara's mashed potatoes, and Mara told him his gravy tasted like wallpaper paste. Claire sat at the head of the table because no one else would. Rose's chair remained empty. Before eating, they went around the table and shared one memory. Rachel remembered Rose helping her choose a wedding dress. Ben remembered his grandmother pretending not to know he had dented her car. Sophie remembered Rose teaching her to drive and praying loudly at every intersection. Mara remembered the first time Rose called her daughter in public. "It was at a pharmacy," Mara said. "The cashier asked if we were related. Rose said, 'She is my daughter.' I bought things I did not need because I wanted to stand there longer." Daniel looked down. When his turn came, he said, "I remember the hallway light." Claire met his eyes. They did not speak about the towel beneath the door. They did not need to. After dinner, Mara helped Claire wash dishes. "You kept the house," she said. "For now. Do you want it?" Claire looked around. "Some days." Mara dried a plate. "Rose wanted you to sell it." "How do you know?" "She said the house held too many ghosts. She had a talent for creating them." Mara smiled sadly. "Yes." Claire handed her another plate. "Do you still blame me?" Mara asked. Claire considered lying. "Sometimes." Mara nodded. "Do you blame me?" Claire asked. "For having her?" "And yes. Sometimes." The honesty no longer felt like danger. Claire turned off the water. "I don't know if forgiveness happens once. I think it happens in pieces. And sometimes a piece goes missing again." "And yes." They looked through the doorway. Daniel was showing Eli how to shuffle cards. Sophie and Noah argued over a movie. Luke and Rachel packed leftovers. A family had not been repaired. A different one was being built. Not from innocence. From truth. The following March, on Mara's 40th birthday, they returned to the cemetery. Snow still clung to the shaded edges of the grass. The sky was clear and cold. Mara carried yellow tulips. Claire carried the silver locket. Daniel came too. Rose's headstone bore the names everyone had known. Rose Marie Bennett, beloved wife, mother, and grandmother. Nothing marked the daughter she had lost. Mara placed the tulips against the stone. "I used to imagine what I would say at her grave," she said. "Mostly I imagined being angry." "Are you?" Daniel asked. "And yes." He nodded. "Me too." Claire opened the locket. The photograph of Rose and 9-year-old Mara had faded further. On the other side, the scratched words remained. "To my brave little bird." Mara touched them. "She called Claire that too," Daniel said. Mara glanced at Claire. "I know," she said. Claire had once thought sharing the name reduced its meaning. Now she understood that Rose had used it like a thread, tying daughters together before either knew. Daniel placed a small object on the headstone. It was an old brass radio knob. Claire looked at him. "Dad's Philco," he explained, "the one I broke." Mara smiled. "You blamed Claire." Daniel groaned. "Mom told you that." "She told me everything." "Apparently not everything." "No," Mara said, "not everything." They stood in silence. Then Claire took a folded page from her coat. "What is that?" Mara asked. "The new obituary." Daniel frowned. "There is already an obituary." "This one is for us." Claire read aloud. Rose Marie Bennett was a woman of courage and fear, love and secrecy. She was a wife to Robert, a sister, a grandmother, and the mother of 3 children. Margaret Rose Ellis, Daniel Robert Bennett, and Claire Marie Bennett. She loved all three imperfectly, deeply, and for the rest of her life. She leaves behind not a simple legacy, but a truthful one. Daniel cleared his throat. Mara looked at the grave, mother of three. Yes, Claire said. For the first time, the words did not feel like a correction. They felt like a beginning. A year after the funeral, Claire sold the house on Willow Street. Before the sale, the family gathered one last time to empty the attic. They divided photographs, furniture, and recipes. Daniel took their father's tools. Claire kept the blue chair. Mara took the cedar chest and the yellow blanket. No one argued over who deserved what. At sunset, they carried the final boxes outside. The rooms echoed. Claire walked through the house alone, touching doorframes marked with childhood heights, the kitchen counter where Rose rolled pie crust, the hallway where Daniel once let light spill under his door. In the living room, she sat in the blue chair one last time. She remembered finding Rose there. For months, that image had been the ending of every memory. Now another image came. Rose at 21, holding a newborn daughter she was not allowed to keep. Rose at 25, holding Daniel and grieving Mara. Rose at 29, rocking Claire through a storm. Rose at 60, waiting in a diner. Rose at 70, sitting in two kitchens, belonging fully to neither because she had never told the truth. Claire had wanted a mother whose love was simple. She had received a human being. That was harder. It was also, finally, enough. Mara appeared in the doorway. Everyone is waiting. Claire stood. On the bare wall behind the chair, a small rectangle remained brighter, where the last family photograph had hung. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if she told us years ago? Claire asked. Every day. Do you think we would have accepted you? Mara considered it, eventually. Daniel. Much later, eventually. Claire laughed. Mara stepped into the room. Do you think she knew we would find each other? I think she hoped. She asked too much of hope. And yes. They walked toward the door. At the threshold, Mara stopped. Claire. And yes. At the funeral, when I said she was my mother too, I wanted you to feel what I had felt my whole life. Claire understood. I wanted to take the ground out from under you, Mara continued. For 1 second, I wanted you to know what it was like to discover there was a family standing where you should have been. Did it help? No. Claire nodded. Pain is disappointing that way. I am sorry. This time, the apology did not demand an answer. Claire took Mara's hand. I am sorry too. They stepped outside together. Daniel locked the front door and handed the key to the real estate agent. Sophie took a final photograph of everyone on the porch. In the picture, Daniel stood stiffly beside Mara. Rachel held Luke's arm. Ben and Noah made faces. Eli leaned against Claire. Sophie stretched one arm toward the camera, laughing as she tried to fit everyone into the frame. No one stood in Rose's place. No one could. But no one stood outside the picture either. Years later, when Claire's first grandchild was born, the family gathered at the hospital. Mara arrived with yellow flowers. Daniel arrived with a stuffed bird, so large it barely fit through the door. Claire held the baby while Sophie slept. The child opened her eyes, dark and serious. She has Grandma Rose's mouth, Mara whispered. Daniel shook his head, too early to tell. She does, Claire said. For a moment, grief moved through the room like a familiar shadow. Then the baby yawned. Everyone laughed. Claire looked at Mara across the hospital bed. The stranger from the cemetery was gone. In her place stood a sister. Not because blood had demanded it. Not because Rose had asked. Because over years of difficult conversations, shared holidays, missed expectations, honest apologies, and ordinary days, they had chosen it. Claire touched the baby's tiny hand. She thought about secrets. People often imagined secrets as buried things, silent and still. But secrets were alive. They shaped where families sat, which names were spoken, who was welcomed through the front door, and who waited in a car across the street. Truth did not undo the damage. It did something more difficult. It made the damage visible enough to stop passing it forward. When the baby began to fuss, Claire rocked her gently. "Be brave, little bird," she whispered. Mara heard. Their eyes met. The words no longer belonged to one mother or one daughter. They belonged to the family that remained. A family built from everything Rose had given them. And everything she had been too afraid to give. At the funeral, Claire had believed the stranger's 5 words destroyed her mother's memory. She understood now that they had only opened it. She was my mother too. The sentence had sounded like a theft. In the end, it became an invitation. To know more. To grieve honestly. To make room. And to finally bring every daughter home.